Okay, ladies, I'm going to go ahead and kind of start my demonstration. So as you can see on my painting here, and I'm going to adjust just a touch. I've pretty much got all my values in there, but I'm going to really focus on the bone with you all, so that you can kind of look at how you go through your stages. Okay, so if you can see on my bone, I've got most of my values basically just kind of blocked in. Okay, so they're blocked in, they're kind of set, showing me where my highlights, my darker shadows, my midtones are. Now I need to work through just continuing on building up those values and blending. And so I think blending has been the utmost. This is what we need help with. Okay. Okay, here we go. So the first thing to blending that I have noticed has helped immensely has nothing to do with actual painting, and it has everything to do about mixing your values. Okay, so this is what I've just kind of learned in working through this myself in the last few days. What you really need to do is you need to give yourself a nice wide range of values already pre-mixed and ready to go on your paint palette or your palette paper. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of mix up like my values on my kind of vertically here. Hopefully paint doesn't start slopping off. So what you need to do to the first thing you need to do to be successful at blending is you need to get yourself a nice wide range on your actual palette paper itself. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm taking paint out of my storage paint palette so that I don't contaminate my paints I already have. So I've got a black glob and a white glob, and then I'm gonna work at giving myself, I'm just gonna mix straight from there to give myself the values that I need. So this is the first thing to be really successful at blending. So if you're gonna work through blending with me today, this is where you're starting. Okay, so what I'm gonna do next, I don't think I need these little things in here. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and make myself a middle gray. Okay, so I'm gonna scoop out here from my white, and I wanna make sure that I give myself enough to work with. I'm gonna start with just a little bit of black. Just a little bit. And I'm mixing this vertically while you guys can be mixing it horizontally on the table surface. And I'm using a palette knife to really make sure that I'm mixing this paint up all the way. You guys will kind of notice that if you mix with your paint brushes, it'll tend to still be streaky and not mixed in all the way. Okay, so I think I'm going to add just a touch more white to this, and I think I want to pull a little more white from my storage palette. So I cleaned off my palette knife. Just going to give myself some more white, pull from here. Okay, so I'm aiming to make a 5. So I'm going to start there. Okay, and again, if you want to work through blending with me today, you should be doing exactly what I'm doing right now. Okay, so right here, I think I've got a pretty good middle gray. So I'm kind of scooping it up and putting it in a pile. Just like that. Okay. So now that I've made up a middle gray to work with, and I'm going to try and get it off of my palette knife as much as possible. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my white and pick an area in this gray to lighten it up And then I'm going to take some of my black and put it in an area of this gray to darken it up. So just in a single area, I can have a wide range of values that I already have mixed up and ready to go. Okay, so here I'm going to get my lighters, my lighter value, so like a 2 or a 3. Just like that, thoroughly mixing. Okay, and then I'm going to grab from my black just a little bit, and I'm going to make an area of this gray darker values. So maybe up here in this corner. Okay, so does everybody see that? So take a look real quick. Those of you that really asked for this, take a look. So I've got my middle gray, then I've got a lighter gray set up and a darker gray. So the key on blending is you need to be able to have multiple values to work with all at one time, because the other thing with blending is you have to work it wet through wet for it to get pretty good, okay? And as I paint, I will also adjust out these values by adding more white or adding more black to serve the purposes that I need, okay? So I'm gonna kind of concentrate on my bone here. So I've got my picture in front, and I'm needing to still kind of make some adjustments. Like this side got too short, so I'm needing to bring it up. So I'm needing to paint over my background a little bit. So I'm just gonna work through that, and I think I wanna work through my lighter highlights first, because I can still see a lot of my yellow ochre pulling through. So I'm gonna start through there, and so you guys are gonna see me work through like my 1s through my 3s to start with, okay? So I'm personally using my number, does this have a number on there? Just my round brush. It's not saying what number it is on there. Oh, maybe I've got paint over the number. Number 8 round. All right. So here we go. Kind of first off, I'm needing to get pretty much like a 1 value. I'm really needing it bright, so I'm taking some of my white that's on my paint palette paper, and I'm mixing it in on the lighter side of my gray to start with. So I'm already trying to give myself a wide range. So right here is where I'm mixing in even lighter values to work with. So you guys can kind of see how I'm going from, and then up here, how I'm going from really light to darker values. Okay, so just kind of gonna look at my visual that I've got going on, and I'm gonna do some repainting and recorrecting. Okay, so I'm really working through my brighter highlights right now. Here we go, kind of readjusting to make sure that I'm really going off of my visual here. Okay, so I've got that coming in here. So ladies, when you kind of start this, just block your values out, okay? That's all you got to do to start. It's just kind of block them out to begin with. So don't worry about blending when you're first starting. Just block, and then we'll work through that. Okay, I've got nice bright highlight coming in up through here. Same thing here. Okay, getting in some bright highlight right there. And I've got a little bit pulling through down in here. Okay, so you're just blocking in for right now. So now I'm going to kind of move up to a little darker values. Kind of my mediums, and I'm going to start getting those honed in just a touch more. Okay, so this is the cool thing about painting is you can always go right over what you've already done. Okay, so for right now, I'm just kind of working at having things just blocked out. Just blocking out my values. Okay. Just working through blocking them out. You hear that a lot from me. Okay, now I'm going to start kind of working through even darker values. So my 5, 6 range. Come in here. Ooh, that's a bit darker than I want to go, so I'm going to back off a little bit. Somewhere more in here. There we go. This is a coach being obnoxious. Bless you. Okay, so just like I said, just working through and kind of blocking some things out. I've got a bit too much water in my brush, so I need to kind of dry it out. Okay, kind of there. Start coming in with some darker values going on, and over here it's pretty dark in that area. Oh no. So ladies, see what happens whenever you get your paint too thinned out with water? Everybody look, see what's happening? Oh no. Okay, if that happens, it's okay. Don't smudge it with your finger. You should just kind of tear off some of your paper towel. Sop it up like this. And then if it leaves a mark there, kind of like that, you can always go in and paint over it. Yep, so I'll have to do a little bit of repair. So that's a danger. Don't let your brush get too wet and don't water your paints down too much. Okay, so I'm still just kind of continuing on working through blocking out, but here in just a sec, I'm going to kind of move into a blending. Okay, so let's see. Not doing too bad here. All right, so I've got it blocked out for the most part. Now let's start kind of talking about blending, okay? So the deal with blending is the easiest way to do it is you have to make sure that you're working wet paint in wet paint, okay? So you kind of have to do it all in one go. So I'm going to kind of concentrate in blending out this area over here just because I've got it really blocky. So not only do you have to do this when your paint is wet, you can slightly water it down, but I don't necessarily think you should do that every time. And then you also want to really just kind of work your brush, okay? So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to start working through blending. So those of you that were kind of really wanting to see this, now would be the time to pay pretty good attention. However, I will be putting this up in Canvas as well, this demonstration, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my lighter white here, and then I'm just going to kind of keep working through my values to blend them out. So I'm going to get my paintbrush just a little tiny touch wet, and I'm going to use my paper towels to just kind of dab that out. Now I want to start kind of subtly working in values. So you just kind of want to go a step up or so. Okay, so here's where like mixing your value scales is really coming into play, okay? So not only am I working through my values really subtly, like one step from another, I'm also working the paint into each other. So on my actual palette, I'm going back and forth between one value and another, and then I work them together into my painting. Okay, so sometimes I kind of have to wipe my paintbrush off. And then sometimes I pick up a little water to thin it out just a touch. And then I just use nice short brush strokes to start kind of working that blending through, all right? So now I'm gonna jump up a little bit. see, kind of work through here. I put that in the wrong spot. And I'm going to kind of start working through blending out this shadow that's in here. Okay, so I'm kind of starting at a 5 or a 6. I'm going to pick up some lighter values to blend it in. So just kind of picked up some more white. You could even rotate your brush around in your hand. And blending just kind of takes, it's a practice thing. You just got to practice at doing it. Okay, now I'm going to start kind of working with some of my darker values that I already kind of have set in here. Here we go. And then I'll start blending these together. So what I'm doing is I'm just doing nice short brush strokes. And as I'm working, I'm cleaning off my brush multiple times and I'm drying it off with my paper towel. And then I'm going back and forth in between my values that I've created on my paint palette paper. So sometimes I don't clean my brush out at all, and then that kind of starts mixing up the values together. And then you just work those into each other. Okay, just because I'm curious, I might move on into working with my fan brush a little bit to see what kind of, I'm going to try that now, just because I'm curious to see how well it can kind of blend out. So all my paint here is wet, and I didn't get my fan brush wet. I'm just working with it completely dry as I go in. And now I'm just going to kind of use that featheriness of that fan brush to try and kind of just very lightly blend all those values together. Kind of see what I get here. Not too bad. Kind of in the area that you're wanting to concentrate, it starts blending them out. But then we will have to come in with our brush that we were already using just a little bit ago and finish it up. Okay, because once you get your fan brush wet, then you have to kind of work at getting the bristles to separate back out from each other. Okay. So I didn't think it was too bad to kind of work in the values here, but now I need to go back to the brush that I was working with beforehand and just kind of keep working through with that. Okay, so with blending, you're just kind of, you got to work wet on wet, and you're just kind of blending out your values that you had laid down into each other. Okay, so really the key in blending is have all your values available to you so you can bounce back and forth in between them, and then it's just subtly using your brush and working the values into each other, kind of in little short brush strokes, kind of back and forth. kind of like this. The better that you can get at making your values also gradually fade to where you don't really have any hard edges, and you can get rid of those hard edges by wiping off your brush and just kind of patting it along there. That'll get rid of those harsh edges that you don't want. Okay, be careful not to get your paints too watery. You can thin them down a little bit with water, but you don't want to do too much or it'll turn into a mess. You get drippies. Okay, so I do a lot of like brush cleaning off and then just kind of working it through all those values that I've already laid down just to get some nice gradual blends. Up in here. Okay, so just picking values up back and forth and just kind of working them into each other as you go. Okay, and sometimes you have to just kind of let what you've done dry and then come back over the top and check it out. Okay. Okay. So not perfect yet, but at least it's got a little bit better of a blend rather than it being blocky. And so it just takes a lot of working through. So here I kind of need to blend out a little bit more also. Again, careful about making your paint too wet. You guys can see that. This is happening to me often. I keep preaching it to you, but then I keep doing it to myself. All right, so maybe I want to kind of work in some of the darker values in there. Got a little too dark up there. Okay, now's a good time to ask questions. Does anybody have any questions or anything that you want me to specifically like show or kind of work through? No. Did this help anybody? A little bit? Yeah, okay. Got some nods here and there. They're saying yes. So really you just kind of concentrate on blocking everything out first. You've really got to set yourself up a wide range of values already directly on your palette so you can just go back and forth. And then you just kind of have to get the hang of using your brush as pretty much like a mode of mixing. Right, so even though I'm blending, I can still come back on top and do kind of a little blocky out, and I can blend later. So for me, on some spots, I kind of keep losing my brights. So I want to try and get those back in there. Get it, drumline. Okay, ladies. I'm going to call it on mine, I think. I've kind of worked through it. I've got this plus 3 other videos that were kind of rendering when I was starting class. That just shows me working through my painting. Like I said, some of them I don't even say anything. It's just me working through them. So you guys can watch that if that's going to help. And then I'm kind of thinking Monday due date. We'll see.